Two missing episodes of Doctor Who.
Two missing Doctor Who episodes.
Two missing Doctor Who episodes.
Which haven't been seen since they were broadcast more than 60 years ago, have now been found.
So I suppose you could say that I am jumping on the bandwagon here because I see so many content creators that I watch and that I know talking about the big news that hit us what I call this week as the week I'm shooting, of the recovery of two Daleks Master Plan episodes, episode 1, The Nightmare Begins, and episode 3, Devil's Planet. There is so much excitement around these that I really wanted to do some kind of video to talk about it. And these kind of videos, what the purpose of them really are is to kind of share the excitement, right? That we're all trying to kind of build the excitement off one another because this is so cool. But I wanted to try to do this in the framework of how these videos work. Because I feel like if I'm just telling you about the news that you probably already read or watched, that it's not going to be worth anyone's time. Now, don't get me wrong. We are going to go over some of that as well. I'd like to give some of my own personal opinion on it. But I also wanted to kind of framework it in the idea of the VHS series. So we're going to be talking about the Daleks Master Plan on VHS. We're going to be talking about when I first saw it. We're talking about also the recovery of Day of Armageddon. Talking about these new finds. There's a lot to go over here. And I'm really excited because this is cool. Now, like everyone else, and I've seen other content creators get a lot of facts wrong about stuff that's already established. If I get anything wrong, please send me a polite note. I'd appreciate it. It's always kind of tricky when you're talking about lost episodes and when they were wiped, when they were film prints destroyed, where did they go? In this case, it's pretty simple in that regard. But feel free to send me a note. Please also like this page. Please subscribe and like. Please, all the usual. And also, here's my Patreon. We'll talk about that eventually. Let's just talk about what is so cool, and that is the return of the Daleks Master Plan, Episode 1, The Nightmare Begins, and Episode 3, Devil's Planet. Now, a contender now that we got to talk about, that we've been hearing different rumblings about missing Doctor Who episodes for a while now, is Film is Fabulous. And I'm not going to get into too much detail about Film is Fabulous, only because it's out there. I recommend that you go to their website. And they are a legal charity in the UK, so you can support them by making a donation. And, if they're going to be finding Doctor Who episodes, I'm all about that, right? I mean, go ahead. Let's I'll put money towards you finding Doctor Who episodes. The thing I like about Film is Fabulous is that they're not just Doctor Who focused. I mean, there's no doubt in anyone's mind when you're talking about like Kaleidoscope, when you're talking about Phil Morris, when you're talking about any of these people that clearly Doctor Who is front and center. Everybody wants to return a Doctor Who episode or two. But like with Kaleidoscope, Film is Fabulous is about finding other shows, other films, and I like that. Because there's a lot of missing material out there, as we all know, and I really want to make sure that we are able to get all of that. I want to see so many returns of different programs off the top of my head. Animate Lives. I was going to say Hugh and I, but boy, have we got a lot of those that came back. Let's finish off Dad's Army. I mean, the list goes on of so many great series out of the unknown. And you all are probably screaming different series that I am that you want to see returned, and that is what's exciting about it. Though, I'm going to be honest because these are my videos, and I can be, and I could say what I want. It may not make people happy. The only thing that I hope that Film is Fabulous kind of controls is the narrative and some of the posts that they put out there. They've been talking about Doctor Who episodes since September, that that there's going to be announcements about it and stuff, and then asking, it didn't seem like they actually had them in hand. They did the same with the Avengers, and all I would say about that, because I think Film is Fabulous is extraordinarily reputable. And I'm not trying to critique them. I'm just, it's feedback. And I hope that they understand this, is that I much rather have announcements like we did this week that just kind of pop up out of nowhere than saying, oh, we have Doctor Who, we think we might know where Doctor Who episodes are. I just feel like that, and I'm going to explain in this video particular how us Doctor Who fans, we don't like to be jerked around about rumors and misinformation about missing episodes. I'm not saying Film is Fabulous had any misinformation, but I think that maybe they didn't need to put out as much as they did without necessarily having anything, or at least they told us they didn't have anything. Either way, to me, it just seems a little clumsy, personally. But I'm very glad at the end of the day, at least on the Doctor Who front, that there's clearly something that was out of it, and what a find it was too. So on Thursday, March 12th, we got news that 2 missing episodes of Doctor Who were recovered by Film is Fabulous. 2 Daleks Master Plan episodes, Nightmare Begins and Devil's Planet. And the thing is like how, and this is where all the fun is. I mean, there's so many Doctor Who episodes still out there, even though the number is dwindling, now down to 95. But the thing about that is that it could be anything. If we hear that, we're gonna get Doctor Who episodes back, it could be anything. Because the thing is about the Daleks Master Plan is, as we all know, it's a 12-part story. It aired in 1965, 1966, and it never was sold abroad. It never was. It was auditioned to Australia, but it was never sold abroad. And when it was meant to be sold abroad, it was meant to be an 11-part story, because the episode 7, The Feast of Stephen, as you all know, was kind of a filler because of Christmas. And they didn't want to have important plot pieces of the overall Dalek Master Plan to happen within those 12 that Christmas episode, because people were going to be too busy celebrating Christmas. How times have changed. I just want to say that. Anyone who knows, especially British television, and I think, and those in the UK, tell me if I'm right about this. I feel like Christmas television became huge viewing when Only Fools and Horses started doing their Christmas specials. And tell me if I'm wrong in that, because I'm very curious about that. Because jumping ahead to New Who, that was their big night for a long time, was doing the Christmas specials. In fact, as of recording this in March of 2026, the 2026 Doctor Who Christmas special will be the first Doctor Who we've seen in over a year. And that's going to be highly anticipated. And I remember a friend of mine, when he found out in 2005 that there was going to be a Christmas special for Doctor Who, he said to me, they just do anything to try to kill it. And I'm like, you don't understand. Christmas is a huge night for television for the UK audiences. Look at programs like Downton Abbey, EastEnders, all huge episodes. If I'm not mistaken, that was the night, a Christmas episode was the night that Wendy Richards' character died, right? I mean, it was huge. And we often get either regenerations or First Doctor stories or whatever else. So it's a big deal. But back then, it was more like we don't think people are really going to be watching television at that point. Interesting viewing habits changed. I think in the U.S. it's still that way. I mean, I don't really watch a lot of, not even terrestrial television, but any sort of current television, I guess, where I don't know. I don't think they try to put new programming on like Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything like that. Now, this segment, I want to just say I'm going to be quoting a lot from Broadcast Who. And that's because, they're the people I like to go to, and I'm sure you do too, talking about the transmissions of stories and where they were sold to and stuff. And they've always been such a great resource for that kind of information. And so if you haven't gone to Broadcast 2, I would do so. But I'm going to start with, and I've had my slight issues with them before about some of the stuff I don't quite agree with, and that's quite all right. But according to Broadcast 2, they say that the 11-part serial, minus episode 7, The Feast of Stephen, was offered to Australia in March of 1966, along with Galaxy 4, Mission of the Unknown, and The Mythmakers. And that's something I just wanted to kind of put out there right now, because Broadcast Who very much says that don't think of this as a 12-part story. They literally say that this is an 11-part story, because Feast of Stephen was, as we said, that filler. And the thing is yes, it was sold abroad that way, or it was meant to be sold abroad that way. It didn't do so, but to tell us that it's never meant to be a 12-part story, I think is not quite right, because I have a lot of merchandise, novelizations, and other things that tell me otherwise. So I think that that's kind of a little bit an error myself. But they go on to say that, once again, that they sent audition prints to ABC Australia. ABC rejects the Daleks Master Plan, and presumably BBC Sydney office, that they returned the prints to the 11 episodes to the BBC. Now, if that's the case, does that mean that all the finds for the 5 episodes that we've had since 1983, does that mean that they are all part of these prints? Or are they something else? So there's a couple of different ways of looking at this that I have found in research between between Broadcast Who, even like Wiped, or even the most recent BBC report on these Dalek Master Plan finds. Now, going back to Broadcast Who, they surmise Barbados purchased Season 3, Mission of the Unknown, and the Daleks Master Plan were not available because of the Australian rejections and moratorium. Because at that point, ABC rejects the episodes, and the BBC actually tries to file another, please look at these again, and that didn't work. So what happens is, according to Broadcast Who, the BBC is not, they decide they're not going to try to sell Dalek Master Plan to Australia because they're just not going to want it. It's therefore highly unlikely that the BBC would have struck any further prints of the serial in 1966 while they were awaiting word on whether a sale has been made to Australia, and certainly not during 1967 when the Dalek serials were off catalog. If you remember, Terry Nation wanted to take the Daleks to America, and by doing so he withdrew the rights to the Daleks in all ways from the BBC, and that included no longer making them available for syndication at the time. And so what's interesting is they're saying that it's highly unlikely that other prints apart from those audition prints were made, but elsewhere on that page in the site, Broadcast Who says, At the time the offer was made to Australia in early 1966, both Singapore and Gibraltar were coming to the end of their transmission of Season 2. The BBC may have struck additional prints of the story in anticipation of a sale to those two countries. As it turned out, neither country picked up the option to continue with the series after The Time Meddler. And finally, Broadcast Who surmises the 2 episodes found in 1983 may have been from a set of these unused additional copies. I don't know how they can say that, to be perfectly honest, and I fully understand that Broadcast Who is not putting that out there as fact, okay? But I personally find that as a leap. It's certainly a theory, and so it doesn't feel right. And I talked to a friend about it, and he said that he was under the understanding that the reason why it wasn't made available anywhere else, the Daleks Master Plan that is because nowhere else they needed Australia, which was much bigger of a market, to buy in on Daleks Master Plan. Otherwise, the equity payments to all the actors and stuff as part of buying the story would have been too expensive for a lot of these other smaller countries, and it could possibly be a reason why Daleks Master Plan never made it to anywhere else as well. So what was found just this last week were film prints, obviously 16mm film prints, positives. But remember that these stories and these episodes all start off as video recordings. They were recorded onto videotape. So before we could talk about anything else, let's just talk about also how these episodes, and I'm looking particularly at episodes 1 and 3, but we can talk about 1, 2, 3, 5, and 10, and talk about when those videotapes were wiped. And obviously what I'm going to, for a lot of this information, is from Richard Molesworth, I think excellent edition, Wiped. This is the updated edition, and obviously I hope we're gonna need a much more updated version soon. That wouldn't be a bad thing now, would it? On the 17th of August, 1967, Enterprise is elected to issue wiped, junked authorization forms for the majority of the William Hartnell episodes of Doctor Who. And once again, these are the videotape master recordings. Whatever reason had motivated them to ask for most of these episodes to be retained in November of the previous year, but must have by now been superseded. And these junking forms effectively canceled the retention forms raised in late 1966. Here's the thing, as you could see from that, I mean, this is so much of the William Hartnell era. And as you can see for Daleks Master Plan, with that junking order, what gets junked for the Daleks Master Plan is episodes 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. So it looks like 3 of the 5 episodes that we currently have now, those at that time, along with so many other Hartnell episodes, the original videotape recordings were wiped. And then we move over to 1969, and on Friday, the 31st of January, 1969, which is the day before the BBC screened the second episode of The Seeds of Death, Enterprise issued a batch of wiped authorization forms for another large selection of Hartnell-era Doctor Who transmission tapes. And on there, I mean, this just hurts, and I'm happy that a great deal of these actually do exist. But Dalek Master Plan episode 3 and 6 at that point were wiped. And then 6 months later, on Thursday, the 17th of July, 1969, that's when junking authorization came down for the rest of the Daleks Master Plan, episodes 10, 11, and 12. what I don't understand, and I don't know if I ever will truly understand this, is how you could have, like, I understand that you're going to junk these stories. Why are you putting out authorization for just it's seemingly random episodes at a time, where to wipe, but maybe there isn't. Maybe it's by videotape number or something like that. I don't understand how we're going to junk all these episodes, but it's going to be partial episodes or episodes of partial stories, and then 6 months or a year or 2 years later, we'll junk the rest. I don't understand. And that's the thing. I'm not happy that Doctor Who had episodes wiped and that we're missing episodes. But yet at the same time, I find it fascinating that this was happening and that this was what we, that this is all these pieces are the reason why what we have at this moment. I don't know. I find it fascinating. I think some of you do too, even though, once again, nobody wants missing episodes. But at the same time, there is something kind of awesome about the fact that we are still getting material back. I mean, now going back to Broadcast Who, they say, by mid-1973, the BBC still retained prints of episodes 2, 3, and 4, at least, although these copies were cited at different locations around London. Episode 2 had been taken to the BBC Film Studios in Ealing, from which it was, as they say, stolen, I say borrowed, in 1973, and subsequently returned in 2004, whereas Part 3 was at BBC Enterprises and 4 was kept in the film library. And, that's the thing, is, once again, are those part of the prints that were returned to the BBC from Australia, or was there another set of prints that were created? But before we could talk about any other finds of the past, at least, probably one of the strangest is the finding of episodes 5 and 10 of the Daleks Master Plan, Counterpoint, and Escape Switch. And what's interesting about it is that I'm not sure if it's fully understood where these come from, but there's a lot of different variations on what the story is. Going back to Wiped, just really quickly, I'm not trying to just read the book to you, but going back to Wipe, Richard says, as reported in DWM 82, it goes on to talk about the story of the recovery began when an assistant for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Wandsworth was clearing out the basement cellar and found 6 cans of film. The assistant phoned the BBC and asked if they would like them back, even if they only wanted the cans. And the phone message was transferred to Brentford Film Library, where Sue Mullen's successor, Steve Bryant, took the call, and he said naturally he's interested. And, it wasn't sure what it was going to be, but he wanted them back. They told him the cans contain 1 episode of Warship, 1 episode of Adventure World, a couple of school programs, and 2 episodes of Doctor Who. Not long after that, films were taken to Brentford, and now Celestial Toy Room, which is the newsletter for Doctor Appreciation Society, they reported on it as well, obviously. But for Richard Molesworth, he reached out directly to Steve Bryan about it, and Steve said, nailing down the precise facts for the background anyway of the matter is not too easy, but everybody enjoys the mystery and speculation anyway. It was not actually I who took the call from the church. It was the deputy head of the BBC Film and Videotape Library, Gareth Morris. He arranged the delivery of the cans to Windmill Road and then passed the job of identifying what may be worth keeping to me. He didn't really take much notice of the details. As far as he was concerned, it was just a case of getting what was most likely just to be a pile of junk delivered to the right address so that we could check it out. It is only his vague recollection, passed on to me in a jokey sort of way, that it was a Mormon church, which is the basis of the story. It could be wrong. It could be wrong. I don't know. But here's the thing. Of all places is Peter Haining. In 25 Glorious Years, he reports on it because there is a chapter in his book about missing episodes. And he might be the one that gets it completely wrong, and this was published in 1988, I think. And this is one of those things that is like really truly totally different, and not totally different, but different enough from what was talked about. As Peter Haining writes in his book, in a chapter called The Lost Stories of Doctor Who, he says, surely the most unexpected find of all, though, had to be Part 5 and 10 of the Daleks Master Plan, which turned up in the summer of 1983. Sitting at his desk at the BBC one morning, Steve Bryant took a phone call from his secretary asking if he'd like to speak to representatives of the Mormon Unification Church of Great Britain. Wary of being sold a subscription for a series of religious publications, Bryant took the call. To his amazement, he found himself speaking to one of the church leaders who was phoning from their newest temple in Clapham, South London. Apparently, having just acquired this previously long derelict church, the Mormon disciples were busy cleaning out the basement when they came across an old crate in one corner marked BBC property. Opening it, they discovered inside a dozen or so cans of 16mm film, again emblazoned with the BBC logo, and want to know if the BBC wanted it back. So now we go from 6 film cans to a dozen or more. His curiosity, Steve Bryant's curiosity, was aroused. Bryant went to visit the Mormon temple, so now he's at the temple. He's there himself, apparently, and was staggered to find 2 missing episodes of Doctor Who in the crate, nestling alongside some children's program and early editions of drama series Warship, amongst others. But to this day, no one is any the nearer solving the mystery of just how the crate came to be in that church basement. You know what's interesting about this, though? I mean, I've been a Doctor Who fan for a number of years. I mean, about 4 years by the time this came out. I knew about missing episodes. I've gone in it to ad nauseum on other videos that I've created. But I was thinking about it when I was putting this together. And this book is probably the first piece of reading I ever did, like on a bigger look at missing episodes. Because I know that DWM had done stuff, but I wasn't getting DWM. I didn't have a news agent that had issues of DWM. But this, I was getting all the big books because I wanted them. And at the time, I considered these as 100% fact. And so this is what it was. And I was really enjoying it because by this point, I had orphan episodes, the camera copies, but they had pictures of episodes in here that were really nice looking, high quality. It's like, oh, someday I'd love to have episodes of some of these orphan episodes that look just as nice as that. Who knew? And then in 2004, as I go every day at that time to the Doctor Who Restoration Team forum, had this amazing post by Steve Roberts announcing that the Daleks Master Plan Episode 2, Day of Armageddon, had been found. And that was incredible. Now, on my Facebook page, when I talked about the announcement of these newest Daleks Master Plan finds, a friend of mine, Andrew, said, can you believe it was 22 years ago since the last Dalek find? And I'm like, oh, come on, you're wrong. And it was like, no, he's absolutely right. It's been a long time. When you get to a certain age, you start aging, like you start putting math together and you're like, I hope it's not another 22 years before we get another Dalek find, because I will be 74 at that point, and that's frightening. But the Dalek Master Plan Episode 2, Day of Armageddon, is a very unique unique story to how it existed. And I'm going to return to Wiped here a little bit to talk about it. The thing is once again, Broadcast Who calls that the episode was stolen. If the episode wasn't stolen, it would not exist. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. So I don't consider that to be the case. We want to be technical about it. It wasn't Francis Watson's property, sure. Francis Watson also gave the full background of what happened. I'm going to give some highlights here. Francis Watson was an engineer at the BBC. He began in 1972. And one day, not long after this, he was given the task of clearing out a room full of junk at the Corporation Film and Television Studios at Ealing, with instructions to dispose of everything therein. Amongst all the various items that Watson found in the room were two 16mm black and white films containing Doctor Who episodes. Watson was a member of a local film club, FilmSoc, as Associated Society at the University College London Union. Consequently, rather than destroy the two Doctor Who films, he kept them so that they could be projected and watched by his fellow film enthusiasts. The two films Watson saved were the Daleks, Episode 5, The Expedition, and Daleks Master Plan, Episode 2, Day of Armageddon. It's also important to note that Ealing was also the home to BBC Enterprises based at Villiers House, a 1960s office block that straddled Ealing Broadway Station. This is where all the overseas sales of Doctor Who episodes were originated. BBC Enterprises had 60mm viewing theater at Villiers House, but would sometimes use the most extensive facilities at the television film studios, which is also in Ealing. So right there, you kind of wonder, with Broadcast Who saying that in 1973 that they believe that there's still 3 episodes of Daleks Master Plan there with the BBC. I mean, in my mind, it would have been at Villiers. And when Francis took episodes in 72, that did he leave some behind, or were they not there? Now, Watson took the films away from Ealing sometime in late 1972 or early mid-1973, and they resided in the archive of FilmSoc for some years. At some point, they were taken out of their separate BBC film cans and both put into a single 35mm can. Watson left London in 1977 to work for Yorkshire Television in Leeds and took his 2 Doctor Who films with him. The film spent much of the next 20 years in several Watson cupboards until he eventually took them into his office at Yorkshire Television in early 1990s. There they hung inside a carrier bag slung on a coat hook for the next 10 years. It's incredible. And what's also interesting about this is we know that those film cans were found and that they were actually people knew about, especially Daleks Master Plan Episode 2 film can, but at the same time knew that wasn't in the film can. What was in the film can was a different film than Daleks Master Plan. So all this starts to make sense. Francis would use those film prints for technical purposes to make different, for training and whatever else, for people to make, transfers from film to like digibeta, stuff like that. When he, at one point, he decided to check Google about these episodes and found that Day of Armageddon did not exist at the BBC any longer. And one site that caught his eye to talk to about this was the Doctor Who Restoration Team Forum. He found Steve Roberts, and Steve asked for him to send as 2 separate parcels the 16mm film can, as well as the digibetas that Francis had made relatively recently, and other recordings. Send them separately, so if something happens to one, maybe nothing happened to the other, like, who knows, car accident, someone steals them, who knows what. And once he was able to confirm it, the announcement came very, very quickly, actually, and that was pretty exciting. Now, about the 2 episodes that were just found, The Nightmare Begins and Devil's Planet, obviously we don't know where these films came from. In fact, the anonymous owner, the collector, who has now passed, he didn't know where the films came from. He doesn't remember. And I mean, as a film collector, I'm not saying I'm a film collector, but I believe film collectors, they get so much stuff in. We've talked about this before. Not everyone is, number one, aware of Doctor Who. Secondly, aware of its rarity, or even the fact that they might have got it as part of something else. The thing about that piqued my interest in the news story that the BBC put out about this find as a possible explanation as to where these film prints came from. They say, but copies of some episodes were still made by technicians to check for problems which might need to be fixed ahead of pitching the episodes to other markets. I don't know if I can buy that as well, because they made their cutting copies or audition copies. So it seems kind of a redundant thing, but I don't think it's impossible, right, that maybe some film copies were made, and I don't mean like illegally, like someone, it's not like Steptoe and Son, where Galton and Simpson asked some engineers to record the master tapes of their episodes on Shabbatin. I'm thinking it's more of, there is perhaps maybe technical teachings or whatever. I mean, we just found out that Francis Watson was doing that with Daleks Master Plan episode 2. Now, granted, the BBC might just have did some research a little bit on how past episodes of Daleks Master Plan were returned, and they read about Francis Watson, and maybe they extrapolated it and put that there. I don't know. But wasn't Invasion of the Dinosaurs Part 1, Invasion, wasn't that a sort of more of an exercise or a training tele-recording opposed to one that was meant for transmission? Because they weren't making tele-recordings anymore for a Doctor Who past season 10. So how did that exist? But that's a different story and a different VHS for a different day. Anyway, and the thing about Film is Fabulous is that they are one of the ways that they're getting collections. They're going to families of known collectors, whether the collector is alive or not, asking basically, will you bequeath your collection to us, or we can even take it now if you want, or whatever. And and it's maybe a slightly morbid sort of thing, waiting for someone to pass. I mean, because they knew about this gentleman's collection, and now he has passed. And so they were able to take the collection, and you got to wonder, how does that work? Like, what kind of timing's involved with that? I'm sure it's not, find out and they're there the next day. But they're probably there pretty soon after, as many of us have gone through death of our loved ones, know that you kind of want to clean out and move on relatively quick. The thing about this collector, though, was that his film collection largely focused on his love of trains and canals, including hundreds of home videos were donated to Film is Fabulous after he died. He actually never watched the Doctor Who episodes. And a lot of the films in that collection had suffered water damage, and the cans had corroded. I mean, it doesn't sound like that the 2 Doctor Who episodes were, which, thankful for that. Actually, there's more than the 2 Doctor Who episodes, but we'll talk about that in a second. So one of the things I feel like I need to talk about here is the atmosphere and the culture of missing episodes being found, the rumors, stuff like that. We talk about that in my most recent video that came out, the 10th Planet Part 2, because I did a video on the 10th Planet VHS in 2 parts because there was so much that I wanted to talk about. And when it comes to this takes me back to October of 2013, when we had this amazing announcement of 9 episodes of Doctor Who. that were recovered. And the thing about that is, I mean, it's, first of all, it's hard to believe that it's been 13 years since, not quite 13 years, but it's over 12 years since the last recovery of Doctor Who episodes. I was 39 at that time. I am now 52. It's amazing how much happened during that period of time. And I mean, there's something so exciting about that and this is the way I'd love it to be, would be like we get an announcement, and that day you could watch the episodes. You could pay for them, watch them. They're all restored. And I remember we had a bunch of people at the house. It was like a Wednesday night or something like that. So it was like a work night, and we had people coming over down in the basement watching these episodes. My friend Bill, before he came over, he's streaming the episodes on his phone to watch some of it. How cool is that? How cool is that that's how you could watch some of this for the first time. I wouldn't do it that way myself, but the fact that he could and that he did, I think it's really neat. I remember being at work, and of course that was a night that I needed to stay late because we had a function going on at work. Thinking to myself, come on, let's get going. Everyone's over there watching Doctor Who, and I want to get back. And I think I came to it like an episode 2 or 2 into them watching Enemy of the World, because I said to them, just start. Don't wait for me. I don't know what time I'm going to get back. I don't want you to wait on it. And it was a very exciting time. At that time, especially in hindsight, but I think a lot of us kind of was feeling this very soon after, the person who returned the episodes, the way I will always look at it is, and I wrote a blog article like the day after I watched them, just absolute euphoria from me about how awesome all this is. And I just read it prior to making this video, and I'm actually embarrassed by it. I won't take it down because to me, that's history, my history. And I was so excited about what was to come. And because I really thought that this was the beginning of, we're going to have more of these, because we were under the impression that there was a lot of episodes that were found. And it's kind of like a mill of episodes that are going to be coming out and that they're going to be restored. And this is just the start. And it's exciting stuff coming. And we had dates that we were told, not by the BBC. Also, it's fair to say, the person who found the episodes never said he had more episodes, okay? That's fair. But when asked, do you have anything more, he would always talk about something about wind blowing and never could give a straight answer. Once again, I understand we don't have to know everything, but the answers also could have been a little bit better of like, even I'm not prepared to talk about that right now. And there's a lot going on that you could say a lot of different things, and I think is a lot better than what I considered stringing people along, is how I look at this. He's stringing people along, and he knew it. And like I said, and we're gonna really break this down here. He really could have help people, and it's just like I think he wanted that tide of success and notoriety. I mean, that's just my opinion. I could be way off on it, but I don't think it was. I think it could have been handled better, because it led to other things that were just as, if not more, dark and pretty seedy, quite honestly. And I'm talking, of course, about the Omni Rumour. By the time we were done, the rumor basically was everything that's ever been missing for Doctor Who has been found. Whether it's through Phil and doing the stations, or through, and I think it was still the whole thing linchpinned on Phil and talking to people who used to be work at the BBC, engineers, stuff like that, that not only had we been able to probably find not only some of the episodes, but all the episodes, and often multiple copies of the episodes. Like Marco Polo, number of copies of Marco Polo. And that's just based on the fact that we do know that Marco Polo had been, many prints have been struck for Marco Polo because it was sold all over, and that's what that based that on. And the thing about that too is not only was it episodes that were missing that were transmitted that they found, but by the time the Omni Rumour hit its stride, that it was the original recording to the second episode of the Daleks Survivors, the one that they had to remount the following week. And also the original episodes 3 and 4 of Planet of Giants. Like, it was everything. Like, we were going to have and that wasn't just Doctor Who. It was going to be all these other series. It was basically, because of this, we had found almost every missing British television series. Who would fall for that? I did. Hook, line, and sinker. I mean, I wanted to believe so badly. I wanted to believe so badly in that, and it seemed credible without knowing any facts. And it was, it was something that, it was exciting. It made life exciting, thinking about how, we're going to be having this trickle of missing material like we did in October, just coming out, and we're going to be able at some point to watch the entirety of Doctor Who in their original format of visual episodes. Now, the thing about that is the bubble burst going into 2014, or into 2014 for us. And some of you may or may not know that I, along with my friends Bill and Robert, we did a podcast called The Others, which started off as we would play episodes and we would kind of commentary along with it. Not like MST3K, but we would talk about aspects of the production. And it was a lot of fun. It was very good. And actually there's some episodes that I haven't, at least one episode I haven't released yet. But there was a point that we decided that we wanted to do something called The Others Missing Episode Minicast. And the reason why we wanted to do that was because there was a lot of information going around, and even with the Omni Rumour was a rumor. So we wanted to try to find and do updates on things that we knew would be more factual and more helpful, and try to keep them as short as possible. And the reason why we wanted to do that, because we thought it would be really a good idea that maybe some people could find a podcast like ours helpful, from hopefully diluting, not dilute from all the other stuff that was going on. In fact, I think it's fair to say that another Missing Episode podcast was inspired by what we did to start their own. Because we just wanted to be very, very much, centralized with the information. And the bubble burst for us, and at least for me, the day we did the first recording of the minicast, of the Missing Episode minicast. And that was a friend of ours who is pretty well known in fan circles, a lot of research and stuff, had said a famous friend of his, which if I were to say the name, everyone would know who it was doing something with BBC Enterprises, and asked, has there been any more Doctor Who returned? And their response to him was, there hasn't been any Doctor Who returned to us since they got The Enemy of the World and Web of Fear back, which is long before that October release. So we're probably coming up to about a year at that point, and nothing new has been returned, though we're hearing about through the Omni Rumour, and we're hearing about it, well, really just through the Omni Rumour, I guess, all of these grand plans, because it wasn't talking about just what episodes were being found. The Omni Rumour was talking about the marketing plan of when these episodes were going to come out, and why that maybe dates get pushed back, why other things weren't working. And so this was of a very, this isn't just like a hoax, like we heard that some PBS stations ran the War Machines with a regeneration scene tacked on at the end. This was a deliberate, absolutely deliberate way to mess with fans who think so much about missing content like this. Now, we didn't, when we recorded that first episode, or really any episodes, we didn't share that information because we were, number one, asked not to. And we weren't reporting on the Omni Rumour. We weren't using any of those as facts. We were talking about like where episodes were being, where they were sold originally, why Tia was actually Thai, which was a way that we didn't know about, that Doctor Who was being bicycled around in other countries. I mean, there was just a lot of stuff that we were trying to get through and try to keep it short and sweet. But the Omni Rumour was starting to fall apart at some point, and there were people who were just nonstop about sending out and continuing this lie. And there was a point, and they would say stuff constantly. Like, they would post all this stuff, and it was always a list of episodes updated with the marketing plan, updated, stuff like that. And they would always say, one in particular would always say, "Good times coming. Good times coming." And he would post this number and number of times a week, sometimes a day. In my opinion, he was not somebody who started it or was trying to spread false information. I believe he believed it, and he was just trying to get that information out. He was harmless, but he was also one of the biggest people to send this out. And I remember, being very frustrated with him, because he would be like, this is all coming. This is a fact. And I sent him an email, and I'm just like, this is not a fact. How can you say this? And he kind of brushed it off, like, this is it. It's just Doctor Who. It's not a big deal, lighten up, basically, is what he said. I'll tell you why you can't lighten up on these situations. So the others, Bill, Robert, and myself, we did a podcast about this person.
Well, you mentioned details, and that's what initial response is. Like I said, Greg, it's just details. So everyone's free to believe or disbelieve anything Scott says. And yet, has got to be the biggest purveyor of details on the internet. For him to say that it's all just details, and it's up to you to choose to believe what he's, which part of what he's saying might be true or might not be true. It matters because Scott's the guy who's giving the level of detail it's risen to the level of absurdity.
Well, and the thing is on this particular thread on that Facebook post, one of the moderators had said, Greg, I think we're all consenting adults here. We don't need to be protected. Thanks. That's a response to me, kind of. I meant it very politely to that. Please keep in mind, there's a lot of people who actually are very much in tune with what you're saying, and when stuff doesn't start showing up in a timely manner, that there's going to be a lot of people disappointed, and they're going to be disappointed because of the information that is spreading. And even though you put the caveat on it that you can believe it or you can't believe it, it's almost like is the solo voice now who keeps perpetrating, keeps this rumor going. Even when things die down, we get more information from, and it's fine, but there's such a waffle of information, and it's not consistent, that I just feel that it's a disservice to Doctor Who fans. And it wasn't a personal attack, it was an explanation of the misinformation that was being spread. Was that a good idea? I get so tired of people who don't take any responsibility for what they do. It didn't go over very well with a lot of people, but I don't find fault with it. We made sure that he knew about it. We made sure that it was available, accessible for him in any way he needed to review it. Once again, it wasn't a personal attack about him. It was more like, this is why it's important that you don't do this. And the reason why you don't do this, and when that episode came out, I thought we were going to get pitchforked. It was really very heavy online. And people were angry with us for doing that, because how dare you point out one person? How dare you go after this person and attack him personally? And we didn't attack him personally. But in my opinion, I think what was happening here was simply this, is we're saying the Omni Rumour isn't real. And like myself, who believed, all these people believe very hard in it. Doctor Who means a lot to them, means a lot to me. For someone to, and it's not just me, it was Bill and Robert and myself, someone who we systematically broke down why this rumor cannot be real, why this is false information, and why it needs to stop. And anybody, I think, who looks at things rationally, even in heated, they're going to see it, and I think that's what happened. And they weren't mad at us going after this person. They were mad that deep down they're starting to see that this isn't real, that this isn't going to happen. After 2 to 3 years of being fed this information, reality struck, and they may have already been thinking about this prior to our podcast, but the reality struck that it's not going to happen. And I think a lot of them projected it at us because we were the instrument to say this, but we were not. We were only the people delivering the information. We were not, we weren't, creating this information. It was there for everyone, and they were mad that they've been had. That's the way I look at it. Because after the Omni Rumour went away, it was, there isn't anyone who because I post to a lot of these places on a regular basis. There isn't anybody who's like, oh, it's you. It's, unfortunately, they saw it. I hold no malice towards anybody who yelled at me or called me names or anything, because it hurts. It hurts when you believe in something so hard. And some people might be watching, it's like, oh, it's just Doctor Who episodes. And I've explained this before to many of us. Doctor Who isn't just a television show. It may have been there with us when we needed someone and we didn't have anyone in our lives. It may have been you just might be a loner and it's something that you enjoy. It's a stress reliever. It might be a show that makes you feel like that anybody can be accepted because that's what the show should be. Or it might have even helped people from deciding not to take their own lives. This is an important show, and missing episodes is an important topic. You don't mess with people about missing episodes. And I will say that. I mean, some people, however, like with 10th Planet video I just did, and Roger Barrett, who, Matthew explained in the last episode how his mate created Roger Barrett to hoax the BBC. It got out of hand, all that. I don't think anyone should be actively trying to hunt these people down and eliminate them. But I can see why people get upset about that, why it hurts, because it's more to a lot of people than just a television show. And I have no problem with that. The thing about this, though, because very soon after the Omni Rumour fell apart, and I don't think it's, and I'm not saying it's because of our podcast that did it. There was stuff that was happening where there were some people who were big names, and I can't think of their names. I mean, I know the one who we did the episode on, but I'm not going to say that because we're past that. But there's like a name, started with a P, I think, or something. He was one that always posted about the Omni Rumour, and I don't remember if he finally was just like, explain why there isn't anything, or he exited out of it or whatever, and all of it just fell apart really quickly, and so there was nothing. So there is one thing that I continue to think about, and I still think that when I always believe if there's a rumor that's around long enough, and not the Omni Rumour, a rumor that's around long enough, there has to be some truth to it. And maybe the truth is already just out there. But I started hearing about this rumor back in 2012. And not the Omni Rumour, but about that Philip Morris had episodes of Doctor Who that he had found. And from the very beginning, 3 stories were always mentioned. And that was Enemy of the World, Web of Fear, and Marco Polo. I think Marco Polo's there. I think it's still there. I think it's still in the mix. I think there's a couple reasons why it's always been a rumor but never actually materialized. And I think it has to do with the fact that people outside of the circle saw those other 2 stories, but no one ever really saw Marco Polo, to my knowledge. So I think that there is something to be said about that, personally. Whether I'm right or wrong, I don't care, because I mean, if there is no episodes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what exists, what doesn't exist, if it's not even there. So we wait till something turns up to really care anymore. And I think personally for me, that's the way to do it. When I first heard about what Phil might have been doing was back in 2012 from Ian Levine himself, which is always funny because we were working on animations, which someday we'll get more into. And Ian is a very, very funny person. The thing about Ian is that he loves Doctor Who. You may not like Ian, but Ian loves Doctor Who, and to a level that you will never understand. And I'm at work one day, and I get a phone call, and it's Ian, and I couldn't answer it. And he calls again, and he calls again, and he gets my work number, and he calls the work number, and I finally call him back, and like, well, what's going on? And he's like, I know something that I can't talk about. And I was like, you know something you can't talk about? Okay, sounds good. Ask me what it is. Well, what is it? I can't talk about it. Literally, this is the conversation. And I'm like, okay. He goes, you got to ask better questions. Like, what are we talking about? He's like, missing episodes. And that got my attention. I have some missing episodes been returned. I can't talk about it. So this comedy act goes on for a little while. And finally we get to the point, and he starts talking about, he doesn't name anybody, but he talks about this person who's been traveling around to archives, and he's been finding Doctor Who. And there's a couple stories that he says that he believes were found. I think Webb was one of them. So we stopped work on, we're working on animation for the massacre. Because a friend of mine had created character designs and stuff, and someday we'll get to all of that. And so he's like, we should probably just hold off for a while because we don't know what's being returned. And he said, but I can't say any more. But you can ask me questions. How many episodes do you think he has? 42. Now, 42 is a number that sticks around for a long time. I had a conversation with somebody who worked at the BBC, embedded in the BBC very deeply. And this was some time ago, but well after the Webb and Enemy find. And we were talking about all of this. And that person shared what they thought might be part still not returned, that is out there. And they named a bunch of episodes. I mean, they named, and I just mentally was keeping track of everything. It doesn't mean that they are out there, but it was their opinion. And afterwards counted up how many episodes that would be that weren't returned yet. And the number was 42. I don't know. You would think, though, that since October of 2013, if he did have anything, that he would be wanting to return something just to kind of keep the wave going, if he had that many. Or, maybe they turn to soup, for all I know. And maybe, turn to soup and try to pawn him off onto somebody else. I don't know. The thing is, though, is that, we don't have it. And I personally, I don't care. I will wait until we see and get official confirmation about episodes being returned. And I learned from the Omni Rumour that, you know what? I seem to fall too hard for these rumors, so I'm not going to pay too close attention, because there isn't anything to get excited about really until, like this, they're officially announced. I will tell you one thing that I think is very interesting about all this is, like, one of the biggest rumors for the longest time, and it was a rumor as far back as when Enemy and Web were available in iTunes in October. We were told through the Omni Rumour, and not through anyone else, that Marco Polo would be made available on Easter. And that was the next set of episodes that are going to be released. And that's where the bubble burst for me, when we found out through that person at BBC that no episodes had been recovered, because obviously where we were when we heard that, time-wise, it wouldn't have been enough time to get Marco Polo restored. I find it very interesting now that we're going to have these episodes on iPlayer on Easter on the BBC. There isn't any word of the US, and there might not be, to be perfectly honest, but that Easter is when people are going to be able to see, I don't know. I mean, it's probably been said. I don't know if it was all the Daleks Master Plan episodes that exist newly restored, or just added to the current, or if it's actually just only episodes 1 and 3. Because here we go, we're now going to be able to watch episodes 1, 2, and 3. I mean, of the Daleks Master Plan, 3 continuous episodes, 1 that doesn't exist, and then the 5th episode. How incredible. I'm sorry, I just keep saying that. Now, for me, Daleks Master Plan, obviously I knew about this from getting the John Mark Leffissier book, reading about different articles, knowing that Daleks Master Plan is 12 episodes. Once again, it's one of those stories that when KTCA started running the William Hartnell episodes in January of 1986, I could not wait to watch all 12 episodes, because I had no idea that they didn't exist. Well, I found out they didn't exist because after they aired The Time Meddler, they jumped straight to the Ark. And, that was one of many times during the first time them airing those episodes that I was crushed. But see my War Machines video to kind of get a better idea of what I'm talking about there, as I go once again very deeply into my own personal sadness about missing episodes and not seeing them on KTCA. That was in 86. It felt like 10 years later I was able to actually see the episodes. It was less than 2 years later that I was able to see the episodes. And that was, we talked about this before, I got all those orphan episodes I originally got as camera copies. And they were horrible camera copies. But I enjoyed it, and I remember just sitting there watching, especially those 2 episodes, and being just amazed that here we are. I can watch these episodes. I don't know why they're flickering like that. I do now, of course, but it was very interesting. Matter of fact, enjoy the crappiness of the quality with me right now.
They have escaped. We shall pursue them through eternity. The uranium core must be recovered.
This patrol is obviously out of touch with events.
What do you mean?
All this hysteria is unnecessary. The operation was a complete success. I have the uranium. Yeah.
You have done well.
I eventually got converted copies of those 2 episodes, and they weren't, I don't necessarily know if they're that much of an upgrade from those camera copies. They just weren't flickering. But eventually I got, and we all got, something that I just loved at the time, and it was Daleks, the Early Years on VHS. This was a great way, these years tape were great ways to put out orphan episodes, especially those that had episodes of stories that were very separate from each other. Nothing that was sequential or anything like that. What I love about this release was on one tape, and I always say this, I think we take for granted now how much the DVDs and Blu-rays offer us. A tape like this, though, back in the day, it was truly gold, because what happens is that you have, first of all, it's presented by Peter Davison, who does a really good job presenting this. A little bit of background about the Daleks, a little bit of, just clips here and there. We interview the people who played the Daleks. We interview people who voiced the Daleks. We interview people who created the Daleks. And within there, we have clips of episodes that don't exist, they play some of the clips that they had. Some of them were cut, some of them didn't have soundtracks to it, but we had those on there. And, I may have seen those in lesser qualities. It might have been on some of my tapes that I got through tape trading at the time, but some of these were really incredible. And then within it, of course, you get 2 episodes of the Daleks Master Plan, Counterpoint and Escape Switch, as well as episode 2 of The Evil of the Daleks, which at the time I had was really pretty poor quality. Not as bad as the camera copies, but in some ways it actually was, I guess. And I actually thought, especially based on the fact that I had camera copies or really low quality copies, I thought the episodes themselves looked really strong on here. They looked really good. The thing is, and I still think that, and it'd be interesting to see if anything has been done with it. Especially, I think episode 5, Counterplot, I think it's really not a great looking telerecording in general. And I feel like that's been kind of that way on in the DVD as well. And so, but I don't really care, because it just, to me, is like film prints look different for a lot of different reasons. So it's possible that these were just maybe even dupes. I don't know. I don't think they were. I think now we know that. But at the time, it's like, yeah, I don't know. But I watched it because I loved it. Because I wanted these in the best quality that I possibly could. And especially for many a years, this was it. Then we jump forward to 2004 with Day of Armageddon, the second episode of the Daleks Master Plan. Now, that was, once again, a surprise announcement by Steve on the Doctor Who Technical Forum. It was so exciting. It was so cool. And I wanted to get a copy of the episode. And the difference is, first of all, we didn't know when we were going to be able to see these episodes that get found. I think they did their best to get them out as quickly as possible back then, but there wasn't an iTunes. There wasn't like a streaming service that you could put them on. That stuff didn't exist even in 2004. So a friend of mine, I'm trying to remember if he got a tape sent to him by friends of Day of Armageddon, and then he put it to DVD, or if it came as a DVD, but it was clearly from a VHS recording. And I remember going over to his place and him showing me about it. And something that I've always wondered, and I always kind of felt bad about, because I wanted that in my collection. The one thing I always tell people when they ask for copies of stuff, I don't tell them, but I always think to myself, it's like, why do you need it? Do you want it just to watch, or do you want it to share with other people and be able to say, I have this? And I kind of had an existential moment with myself about that, because as soon as I was shown the episode by my friend, I asked for a copy of it, and he's always been very good. He's like, yes, but the look on his face, and maybe I'm just projecting, was kind of like, almost like a little bit of like disappointment, like like, and I can see it. Like, you just saw it. What do you want a copy for? And I think part of it, for me and many others, comes down to that we know that there's a hole in our library now of an episode that we know exists, so we want to do whatever we can to put it in there. We want to rewatch it. The one thing I wouldn't do is I wouldn't share it with anybody, because that's just not what I do. Especially if someone says, please don't share this, I'm not going to share it. But it did make me kind of think, well, maybe I shouldn't have asked. And he kindly gave me a DVD, which I have to this day. It's very nice, but it did kind of give me pause for thought on it. And I mean, all these years later, it still sticks with me, because it is like, well, what do you need it for? But once again, we had no idea when this episode was going to be made available. And in 2004, the DVD range was going, but the idea of individual episodes being, the orphan episodes being made available was not on the cards. That's not something that anyone really thought about. The people putting together probably had an idea, but we weren't thinking that. Same with like animation. I mean, and when we're talking about putting reconstructions on disc or making them available officially, that was often kind of poo-pooed by people. So I didn't know. It could have been a long time. But, so we had it. And then, of course, Lost in Time came out about 2 years later. Came out in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. So I just looked it up. And Lost in Time actually was released in 2004. So I couldn't wait, like 6 months to get this. Yeah, that's a little poor, actually. And my understanding is that this is now in a thin case. Not that that it matters on some of these anymore, but yeah, this came out pretty quickly. We didn't know, because I immediately thought, well, I don't think I have that right when I said 2006, because that's when the beginning set came out. So yeah, this is 2004. It must have been like November of 2004, or something like that, as a kind of for Christmas, like big release or something like that. And if I'm not mistaken, this was worked on pretty quickly as well. But I do love the Daleks in this era. When I mean mainly, like, and I'm sure Mission the Unknown is part of it, but Daleks Master Plan through Evil of the Daleks. I mean, they look great, even though they pretty much look the same leading up to this. But I think they sound the best ever in the series. In that short span, I think they really get the voices down. It's a grating metallic voice that is absolutely wonderful. And we know Day of the Daleks does not have those voices, but even afterwards, it never is quite the same. I think maybe the closest you get is to Remembrance of the Daleks, but this is when they were the best with voices, in my opinion. I also love the fact that you can have really pretty accurate versions of those Daleks. I really love this, especially after years being told that the Dapel Daleks were like really, that they were very close in measurement to what the Daleks really, look like, but in small form. No, these are beautiful, in my opinion. I love them. I have a couple. Probably more than any human should, right? As a side note, too, I just want to say that, since we're talking about Dalek Master Plan, I do enjoy, as my main version of Mission to the Unknown, the Ian Levine animation version done a number of years ago. Was that 2012 or something like that? 2011, 2012. And I still consider that my main version of watching it. I helped out very little on that. I helped out a lot more on other projects. But the thing is that it's someday we'll get more into it. We can keep talking about animation. And that animation for Mission Unknown was supposed to kind of help us get into doing official animations for the BBC. Whether or not that was really going to happen or not, who's to say? But we were in contact with them. We were talking to them about it. But that story will be another day when we get to Reign of Terror. I think that'll be a good one. We take a quick look at radio times for the Dalek Master Plan, and apart from a preview for the story set in the same issue as the first episode, Nightmare Begins, everything else seems to be pretty much just radio times listings of the episodes. Now, the focus of this video is celebrating that episodes 1 and 3 of Daleks Master Plan has been returned, and I think we must all, when we were watching all the different news outlets reporting on it, I think we all had been struck by imagery of these episodes, stuff that we've only seen how people thought it would look through reconstructions or just people putting pictures together or whatnot. And the thing is, it's there's some great shots that we have seen so far just from the BBC News clips. My favorite is basically a camera dolling following a Dalek, and it stops at the Doctor in this wonderful shadow, eerie, atmospheric just shot when he says Daleks. I just think, wow. Not seeing it, I would have never known. And I think that is absolutely fantastic. And now you see people online posting images of like shots that we have seen, what they really look like versus what other people are making AI episodes. Did they get it right? Did they get it wrong? Which is cool, just as long as you don't force it. It's like no one knew. I mean, if anyone knew, it would be Ian because he kept such meticulous notes. But just please don't make fun of people if they got it wrong, because that was part of the fun, was to kind of think what you kind of put your mind in the same mind of like Douglas Camfield, what he would have done. And I don't know, it seems kind of, I've seen people kind of be rude about it, and it's like there's no need for that. It's all meant to be fun, and now we got the actual episodes back. It also must be said, with the find of those two episodes, that other episodes of Doctor Who were found along with it, but they are existing episodes. And those episodes are the Daleks, episodes 2 and 3, the Survivors and the Escape, the Web Planet, episode 1, which is called the Web Planet, and then the Chase, episode 1, the Executioners. Now, what's really interesting, a friend brought this up, and I thought, oh, how interesting. It's kind of true. Like, what if, in a separate timeline here, that the Chase didn't exist at all? And suddenly, like, you now have an episode of the Chase return, but prior to that, all you would have had were 8mm clips of the Chase that was recorded in the 70s out of New Zealand, that we have all those missing episode clips. But remember, this person also recorded episode clips of stuff that did exist, because he didn't know what was going to be missing. He just recorded stuff that we think that he knew was interesting, that he had seen these episodes once before, because they were ran once before, and when they ran again, he knew kind of what to look for, I think, and he recorded those iconic moments, or those interesting moments at least, and the chase is one of them. Now, a couple interesting things to also bear in mind about the find of these episodes is that on Gallifrey Base, it's been, Paul Vanasis has been saying for years that he knows of, I think he said, like, at least 2 episodes that exist in private collections. And I think it was Philip Morris that he said he knew about 6 episodes that existed in private collections. And so somebody asked Paul on Gallifrey Base, I believe, like, were these 2 the 2 that you knew about? And he said, no, this was bonus. These are bonus episodes, which is cool. And then someone else asked him, they asked Paul, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, what is the likelihood of more missing episodes being returned in the next 2 years? And he responded, 10. Before we move on to what DWM had said about a couple different things I want to share, I just have to point out there's a shot that we have seen in Daleks Master Plan that I find very interesting. Anyone who had Marvel Comics in the U.S., and they had the Doctor Who comic that came out once a month, and on the back there would be a picture of all 5 Doctors, and they slightly resembled all 5 Doctors. And I think that the one that I always laughed at was their version of William Hartnell. Because, number one, he's bald in it. But the thing I find very funny is that this shot from The Nightmare Begins, to me, is like, did you use that as your reference to make the photo? Because it looks just like it. That's the first thing I thought of. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Let's take a look to see what DWM had to say about a couple different things. One of them, let's start off with DWM talking about the find of episodes 5 and 10 back in 1983. This is DWM 82. And it really all it is, I mean, we talked about this earlier, but it's interesting that we can find, you know, this article, and let alone the fact that it clearly, there's a lot of different iterations about how it was found, where it's found. And I think it's very interesting that Steve Bryant basically said that the person who took the call and got the details was more focused on basically, okay, you have film material, okay, let's talk about it. Where it came from, ultimately, at least in this person's eyes, and I can understand, was immaterial. It was just like, okay, we'll get the films back and we'll take a look at it. That was really all it was about. And sometimes I think we have to remind ourselves to look at it from a very human perspective like that not everyone's going to want to know not only, you know, where the episodes were found, but the person who called in, what he had for breakfast that morning. You know, it's all stuff that we just, you know, it's like we want it for prosperity's sake. And now 43 years later from that find, I think people are well aware that that's the kind of stuff that we need to know on a lot of different levels for a lot of different reasons. But back in 1983, you know, all that this gentleman was doing was making sure that Steve Bryant got the call to be able to get these episodes. And, you know, that's fair. I think that's fair. Moving on to DWM 185, we're moving on talking about the release of the Daleks, the early years. Because after all, this is a video about VHSs, so I'm trying to find a way to get VHS back into this. Back in DWM 185, it talks about the release for 1992, all the releases that are coming out, because it was 93, we always say is a big year for Doctor Who releases, and it was. 92 was not shabby at all. So what we're talking about for the releases for 1992, there was a big emphasis on Shada being released, and that was a huge deal. We'll talk about Shada eventually. But it does mention a release of a title that's just called Daleks Special. Now we move on DWM 187, it talks about how you can, and this is where they can talk about the actual name Daleks: The Early Years. You could win one of 10 sets of Daleks: The Early Years if you answer some questions. And to be fair, they're not just talking about Daleks: The Early Years. In the same month, the Cybermen: The Early Years also came out. We'll talk about that. Here's the deal. We'll talk about that when some Cybermen episodes are found. How about that? This, these were big deals. And in that same month, or just right before that, or right around that, Shada was being released. I mean, huge. And I remember very specifically that this was, in the U.S., this was a part of a wave with Cybermen Early Years, as well as Shada on VHS. There would have been probably 3 others that I can't remember off the top of my head. And the idea that we can go down, I went down to Suncoast Video, which was a big VHS store and Laserdisc back in the day, and I could get episodes of the Daleks Master Plan, Wheel in Space, Moonbase, and Shada. That was all huge, just huge. Moving on to DWM 189. The release of Daleks: The Early Years is reviewed in Off the Shelf by Gary Russell, who generally likes it. He likes the Dalek tape more than the Cybermen tape. The one thing between the DWB and DWM reviews, they both wonder why the clip from episode 1 with Gentry did not have audio to it. They like, you could have put some sort of audio, because there was audio that existed for these at the time that we knew about, but we didn't know about the Graham Strong audio yet, but there was poor quality audio that they could have put in there. But, for me personally, as a fan and getting this, that didn't bother me at all. We jump ahead quite a bit, though, to DWM. We jump ahead to DWM 340, and we finally see an article of the return of episode 2 of Daleks Master Plan, The Day of Armageddon. I say finally because it was a few months after January 2004 that it might have been like March or April issue that they announced it. But, once again, the announcement came so quickly. I think the day that, if I'm not mistaken, the day that Steve Roberts confirmed that it was, in fact, Dalek Master Plan episode 2, that afternoon they announced it. Whereas clearly with Dalek Master Plan 1 and 3, that it's been held for a while, and meaning that they were planning a marketing strategy just like they did with Enemy and Web. I think this is smart. They have pretty much all their ducks in a row at this point, and I think that's very smart to do. And I think we had a very cohesive launch about it. Let's see, DWB. It's hard to believe that DWB looked like this at some point, very early on, but it was very much an underground sort of publication. In issue number 2, there is a short piece about the return of episodes 5 and 10 of Dalek Master Plan. Not a whole lot, but over time, and like I said, it's issue 2 of DWB. As DWB goes on, it becomes a huge hub of missing episode rumors and just all sorts of different information that a lot of times presented as rumor, but was actually fact. They got it right more often than not. DWB 101 has a short blurb about Daleks: The Early Years, but funny enough, they also call it Daleks Special. So it must have been like a press release to publications of like, these are what's coming out, and in July we're having the Daleks Special and we're having the Cybermen Special. They just didn't know what to call it yet. DWB 103 has a review of both the Daleks and Cybermen Early Years, and it is reviewed by Julian Knott, who runs the Rhubarb Forum, and I always have time for Julian. He's a wonderful person, and he writes this very interesting actually, because I don't know, reading his review, if he thought that releasing these orphan episodes necessarily was a good idea or not. He kind of talks about how it's, just basically fan lip service to release these episodes. And he wasn't happy with the color of the Cyberman Years tapes. He was happier with the Dalek Early Year color scheme for the cover. But he is not overly, he liked the Dalek tape better than the Cyberman tape. And I should really look at the Cyberman tape again. I don't remember being underwhelmed by it, but both Gary and Julian were a little bit more underwhelmed by it. Now, as we talk about this tape itself, we talk about the cover. One of the things it just falls in line with all the Years tapes covers. And it's not a dynamic design. It kind of looks like the person who designed Silver Nemesis. He did a better job with these, but it's that kind of that just block photos. One of the things that I think Julian mentions on the cover for this is that it's the wrong Dalek, because the focus is on the Dalek Master Plan, or Evil of the Daleks. There are clips from Dalek Invasion of Earth in this. I don't know. I think this is a great photo, actually, because it's the early years of the Daleks. Even though by this point this story would have been out on VHS, I think that it's a great cover all the same. I mean, it's just a very simple, and it's a good way to sell the point of what it is. And I like about it, like I said, it's simple. It's not like a montage. It's not like something that's forced. It is interesting. At this point, all VHS covers, apart from Shada, that comes out at the same time as this, it is interesting that these are not illustrations, that they are just straight up pictures. And, there's, like I said, they did it for all the Years tapes. So as we look at the back of this cover, it's not a whole lot to it, but I mean, this thing is full of stuff. There are interviews of Terry Nation, Raymond Cusick. We also have John Scott Martin on it, Roy Skelton. Then you also get clips from the Daleks. You get clips from Dalek Invasion of Earth, including a trailer that Julian in his DWB review says that they cut the trailer up, and they shouldn't have. I wouldn't have known. I'm presuming what's on the collection is the correct amount, but I had no idea any of that stuff existed. So I was happy. I mean, I understand if you know about this stuff, you'd be like, why didn't you do it this way? But for me, I didn't even know it existed. It's like, I thought we went as deep in the archive as we ever would, and I was fine with it. And they even had clips from Dalek Invasion Earth, 2150 AD, which to me, it's like, that's pretty interesting because it's not BBC. That had to take a little bit of extra care to do. And I appreciate this as a piece that is all about collecting all the information about Daleks the early years, and that you don't include both films, but you include one of them to kind of, at least, very least, to be like, and it existed. So I appreciate that very much. There was even an outtake of the Dalek sequence from The Five Doctors, which was like, what? I didn't know that existed. It's like, for a young fan, this is pretty cool stuff. Might be a little bit hokey now, but back then, that was really neat. Now, there was no restoration done to these episodes, as far as I'm aware. And like I said, even though these were much better quality copies than what I had, you could still see, I thought, that episode 5 really didn't look all that great overall, in my opinion, especially the sound. I think the sound was really something that I thought about with that. Now, moving over to Lost in Time, we are fortunate to have articles for many of the DVDs back in the day about the restoration. And so there are notes about the Dalek Master Plan restoration on there. And so the following was said about the episodes. So for Daleks Master Plan Episode 2, Day of Armageddon, it was sourced from a 16mm print returned in January of 2004. Generally reasonable quality, quite sharp, but also grainy. 4 tram-line scratches throughout episode of fluctuating severity were rotoscoped out wherever possible. Film sequences were reinstated from the original 35mm camera negatives. Credits remade. Then we go on to Daleks Master Plan Episode 5, Counterplot. Sourced from 60mm print, found in 80s, 1 off-lock repaired, credits remade. And then finally we go to Daleks Master Plan Episode 10, Escape Switch. Sourced from 16mm print, found in 80s, 3 phosphor burns in film recording screen left due to time restraints, credits remade. And I think that's very interesting because if I recall, Lost in Time was put into the schedule and replaced what they were working on for the beginning on DVD, which is ironic because it's the second time that their plans for a beginning set is being moved, but it's also, this was last minute. I seem to recall that it was a lot of quick work to get this release ready to go. And a lot of, it was still one of my favorite releases, to be perfectly honest. And then in my files, there is a kind of a long article from Francis Watson talking about how he had Day of Armageddon, and it's actually fairly long. And then the correspondences between him and Steve Roberts under it. And I think that this was probably available and may still be available on the Restoration Team website. I'll double check. But I might just put it up on my, with some stuff taken out because there's phone numbers and stuff in there. And I couldn't imagine anywhere else I could have got it from other than the Restoration Team website. But I'll put it up on my Patreon as well for those of you who are members to kind of check out. I think Francis was enjoying his time of knowing that he had saved an episode of Doctor Who. Not stolen, he saved an episode of Doctor Who. Right now I want to do a video comparison between, and really it's only going to be just a quick of each of the surviving episodes that we currently have of Daleks Master Plan, of the source from the VHSs of the episodes prior to restoration versus what we had in Lost in Time. I think that it's kind of cool to take a look at. So take a look, see where we came from.
An archaic word for so advanced a man as yourself. Considering that the planet Tisa and the embodiment Gress have both, at different times, tried to depose you.
Oh, there are mice inside. Funny sort of cage for mice.
Yes, it could be some kind of transmitter.
I hope Brett finds us.
Well, I suggest you stay at that door. If you hear any noise outside, it's bound to be him.
Yes, if it's moving fast enough.
Yes. Nice.
The Doctor would hand us the core of the Time Destructor.
Is that true?
The silence confirms it.
And also because we have audio sources and whatnot, I want to take a audio comparison between, and this is from episode 5, Counterplot. I want to compare between the audio that's on Daleks-The Early Years, as well as Graham Strong's original unaltered audio, the Randolph tape unaltered audio. For those who don't know, the Randolph tape, it begins with the Dalek Master Plan. It is our belief that these were just a few of the overall tapes, that actually probably many more episodes of Doctor Who were recorded from what this source was. But I want to include the audio to that, as well as then the restored audio from the final CD that was released, and go from there and see how the different source materials sound.
There we are. That's finished. It's a pity we haven't a more reliable way of testing it.
Well, come on. I thought you said it was finished.
Oh, yes, it's finished, my dear, but...
Oh, come on, Doctor. We haven't got time for buts. This is our only hope.
Yes, you realize, of course, we're taking a terrible chance.
You can save your breath. We've got to try it.
Very well, my boy. Pull the main switch. That's finished. It's a pity we haven't a more reliable way of testing it.
Well, come on. I thought you said it was finished.
Oh, yes, it's finished, my dear, but...
Oh, come on, Doctor. We haven't got time for buts. This is our only hope.
Yes, you realize, of course, we're taking a terrible chance.
You can save your breath. We've got to try it.
Very well, my boy. Pull the main switch. There we are. That's finished. It's a pity we haven't a more reliable way of testing it.
Well, come on. I thought you said it was finished.
Oh, yes, it's finished, my dear, but...
Oh, come on, Doctor. We haven't got time for buts. This is our only hope.
Yes, you realize, of course, we're taking a terrible chance.
You can save your breath. We've got to try it.
Very well, my boy. Pull the main switch. There we are. That's finished. It's a pity we haven't a more reliable way of testing it.
Well, come on. I thought you said it was finished.
Oh, yes, it's finished, my dear, but...
Oh, come on, Doctor. We haven't got time for buts. This is our only hope.
Yes, you realize, of course, we're taking a terrible chance.
You can save your breath. We've got to try it.
Very well, my boy. Pull the main switch.
And then, of course, there's that beautiful vinyl set that was released of the soundtrack to these episodes. How amazing. And then, of course, there's the soundtrack, the audio from a lot of Dalek material from the 60s that the BBC released called Devil's Planet. And that is a fantastic, absolutely fantastic soundtrack. I love my soundtrack, so that is really cool. And then finally, I just want to let everyone know that I hope you enjoyed this. This is kind of a faster put together video than I normally do, and hopefully it just didn't seem like a talking head to you. If you find these videos worthwhile, please consider joining my Patreon, because every little bit helps, and I use it to buy the money to buy stuff that helps make these videos. Also, I'm going to point out, once again, Film is fabulous. They are doing some great work, and they are also needing funding. So please consider supporting them. If I got stuff wrong, or you want to just chat, or tell me how excited you are about all this, and that is just fine, please send me an email at the address below. And my thought here is that when we get more announcements, I want to kind of do more videos like this where I tie them into the VHS releases, because honestly I wasn't sure how I wanted to approach the years tapes, and maybe this is the way to do it. I don't know. Let's have more finds, and we can figure it out. Like, we can work out how these videos are made. Just give us more missing episodes found. That's all I'm asking for. I just want to say that this was really exciting, hasn't it, for all of us? I'm very confident that we're going to see more episodes return, and I think what's even more exciting is that the lens is bigger than Doctor Who. It's British television. There's a lot that's coming. I think that's going to come our way, I hope. And this is a fun journey that we can all take together. And let's take a look at the grid as we fill in the fact that now we have 2 more episodes to add to being returned, which now makes the number from 97 to 95.
And there are more space adventures on these BBC videos with William Hartnell